and welcome to episode 14 of the Gig Stories podcast. I'm Chris.
And I'm wondering who I'm speaking to because, listener, he's never that posh. I don't know your kid's in pain with your hello and welcome. It seems novel, doesn't it? For some reason, it seems like we haven't spoken for ages.
I know. Did I put on my phone voice there?
You absolutely put on your phone. I mean, normally, I can't understand you in real life. You know, that harsh Scotch egg. That Scotch egg.
Wow.
Is that Scotch egg in your mouth?
Yeah. Wow. Sorry, let me finish. No, normally I sound like some kind of Peterhead trawlerman. But yeah, I went all posh there. I'm going to roll with it. That's fine.
I reckon this intro will win us a British Podcast Award. Just on its own. Just this intro.
Yeah.
Nailed on.
Or nothing else is.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't know why, listener, but it seems like it's been a while since we've spoken to you. And Chris and I personally both been actually working. Check us out. Out doing our day jobs and working in TV and photography. And it's great. And I feel like, you know, we've missed you. But we hope you enjoyed that last episode because Johnny Kelsey is an absolute legend. And we told you would come away from that episode feeling uplifted. And that sounds so trite, but honestly, I just smiled for ages after that episode. And guess what? I smiled for ages after recording the interview that we are bringing you today. How beautiful was it, Chris?
It's another one that's kind of good for the soul, I think, this one. Yeah, and we were quite nervous beforehand because it was most of the people that we've interviewed so far we've known beforehand, or at least one of us has known them. But this was just a kind of, let's see if he'll come on, because he seems like a nice chap, and he went, yeah, cool, yeah, and but we were both kind of going, oh no, this is weird. This is weird.
The truth is, we became delirious. It was so funny because we were both so nervous. I mean, I genuinely, I was starstruck. You know, this is Nick Heyward, and we were waiting, and that made it worse. And
we were whipping each other up.
It was hilarious. And do you know what? We had no need for nerves because, as you'll hear, what a beautiful man, so well spoken and so passionate, loves to talk, and that is not a backhanded compliment. It was just great. Loves to talk and had some wonderful anecdotes and insights, and you know, I fell in love with him, I'll be honest.
Well, we were on that Zoom call. I think it's the longest Zoom call I've ever been on. We were on for about 2 hours. So I managed to edit it down to just under an hour and a half. And I couldn't really get much more chopped off, really, because it's all really great.
I mean, how many toilet breaks did we have?
We just had the one.
It
was just the one. But again, like with Gaz Whelan's episodes, all three of us went at the same time to our respective toilets. And but yeah, it was great. And I managed to edit it down to about an hour and a half. But trust me, you know, if you can't do an hour and a half, because you know, an hour and a half dog walk is quite a long dog walk. So if you want to do it in two chunks, I think we decided to put it out as one rather than as in part one and part two.
Yeah.
Yeah, just listen to half of it one day and half of it the next.
Exactly, and enjoy. You will. I think you'll, despite our dulcet tones, I think you will just love listening to Nick, who's just so self-effacing. Just it's great. Anyway, before we go into that, Chris has sort of witnessed some live music, haven't you, at the Manchester Jazz Festival? I'm still yet to go and witness some live music. Tell me a bit more what you've been doing. Was that, it's not just been for work, or has it just been for work? You've been getting a bit of both in?
Well, Manchester Jazz Festival was just for fun, because I like a bit of jazz.
Yes, he does. We know this.
Oh, yeah. But I was photographing on Monday at Stoller Hall, which wasn't part of the jazz festival, but that was an amazing sax player called Soweto Kinch, who, well, just Google him and watch some videos of Soweto Kinch. I first saw Soweto Kinch play about 15 years ago at Manchester Academy. Have you ever had a beer called Brahma, Brahma? I don't really care if I get that spelling right, because I don't really want them to sponsor us, because it's horrible stuff. It's really, it's not my bag.
If they do want to sponsor us,
yes, but just send money, not beer. So they put on this massive free gig at the Academy, and it was Sao Jorge, this Brazilian singer-songwriter, and he, I think the previous year, had provided most of the soundtrack to a fantastic Wes Anderson film, The Life Aquatic, and he had so he had done loads of Bowie covers, and so he grew up in the favelas of was it Rio? I can't remember. Anyway, he was amazing, but Soweto Kinch was on that bill. And so that was 15 years ago. So I photographed him at the Storrow Hall on Monday, which was grand, absolutely brilliant. It was just a 45-minute lunchtime concert. And there are a few more lunchtime concerts going on at Storrow Hall every Monday. So it's best to check out that website and the Yard as well. So the lunchtime concerts are then repeated at a venue called the Yard, also in Manchester, in the evening. So yeah, definitely worth checking that out.
So if you are Manchester based, get on that.
Yeah, on it.
So there's live music happening, so you can get to it. It is out there. I'm going to be honest. I've just had a chuckle. I've been covering a chuckle because when you mentioned that he had covered Bowie songs, for whatever reason, into my brain jumped a video that I will have to find a link for, and you must all watch it. And it is Sting at a ceremony watching a performer, and this is where it's a bit vague. It's just it's a male guitarist, and I can't remember who it is, singing one of his songs, and I believe it's Fragile, and it's one of the most hilarious covers, and you should see Sting's face throughout it. It is so funny. It actually makes me cry laughing.
Is he a bit cross?
Oh, he's just so confused and like, what? But he's obviously aware that he's being watched, so he's trying to hide this sort of and if any of you out there have anything similar where you've got videos of covers that you just think are awful or things like that, they're just bad, please, I love stuff like that. I can't get enough of it.
So if you put that on the on our Twitter account, we'll not pop it on the episode page, but we'll bob it on the on the Twitter.
I'll put it on the Twitter. I will tweet it out, because honestly, it's just the funniest video. It makes me cry. Anyway, that's enough of me chatting. What the listener wants is Nick Heyward. So strap in or jump under the duvet, put your headphones on, and prepare for the beautiful tones of Nick Heyward.
Nick Heyward, everyone.
Woohoo! Yes, it's the Gig Stories podcast, and listeners, this is a big one. So big, I haven't stopped smiling all day. So big that Chris has had his first out of lockdown haircut, especially for today.
Yeah, it's been so long since I had a haircut. This one actually hurt. It was sore. It was really painful.
Joining us live from his home in Tampa, we have the wonderful Nick Heyward. Nick, how are you doing? Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
So I've got to ask you, Nick, which exact fountain of youth have you been drinking from?
Thank you very much. There's a huge compliment there, because if you'd have seen me 10 years ago, I was pretty heavy, you know, pretty big size-wise, and on death's door, you know. I got to 50 and everything hit all at once, I must say. My health really took a dive. I was really surprised by it because I didn't live that unhealthily. You know, I was really partial to lentils, and I was living well. And I went down the gym, not regularly, but, you know, I'd done my bit in my 30s. And so I thought I was okay, but actually it really hit home. And I got all manner of...
Chris is panicking now, Nick. He's
well,
panicking.
Overwhelm you, you know. You just don't know. You know that little bit around your belly that you think is okay.
Yeah, but I didn't realise that lentils were like the gateway pulse, where it led on to stronger pulses.
Well, I didn't think about the power of lentils until I was up with massive wind. Massive. And then the next day, the wind was gone, but I had this power, this supreme power for the whole day. I was like literally a balloon, you know, that had been let off. Like, I was around the park going like, wow, I feel amazing. What on earth could it have been? You know, I thought, was it that huge tummy last night, the bloatedness? And it probably was. So yeah. Don't underestimate the lentil.
I won't ever again.
Oh, and on that note, let's just wrap up the podcast right there. Don't underestimate the lentil. Very soon, you know, hopefully we won't be asking the question, but how has the past year been for you, Nick? Has it been quiet? Have you felt creative, or have you just been hiding away?
Well, initially I thought I felt quite reflective, and went straight to my computer, opened up Logic, and started, you know, singing. And, you know, I wrote this song. And I thought, I'm going to share this with people, and this is great. And then I realised the song was awful. It was really literal, you know, like I'm here in a room and there's a songbird outside. It's like, fascinating, Nick. That's really, you know, for you, you know. You're in suburbia. You've even mentioned suburbia. You're in suburbia, in a certain suburban street, and there's a songbird outside, and you're listening to it. Wow, how profound is that?
Did it feel like you know, when you have a really great idea in a dream and you write it down just after you've woken up, and then you go back to sleep and then look at it again and go,
exactly.
I've just written imagine.
It is an idea, and you have to work on it. You know, it's like the first draft, isn't it, of anything? You know, You think it's brilliant, but it is brilliant, but you've got to work on it. You know, I've done about 30 novels, you know, of first drafts where you haven't, because you've got to that point where you just think everything you've done is great, but you haven't got the skill yet, the skill sets for actually completing things. You know, you've just got the ideas, you know, because we all got ideas you look at Harrods and you go, that's a great idea. I think I'll start one of those. You know, and then you get up the next day and you think, right, okay, how do you run your own store? I've got the name. It's called Hayward's. Okay. And that's the same with anything like that. But normally it's that thing of just start doing it, like a podcast. You know, you just do it, and one thing will lead to another. Anyway, this song, Songbirds, led to another song, which led to another song, because, you know, I shared it with Patreons, because I got a Patreon together straight away.
Yes.
I thought, oh my God, there's no live work. Oh dear, that means there's no money.
Did you have a load of gigs cancelled then?
Yeah.
In the States or back across here, or both, or? In
the UK, because I mean, at the moment, I do play here, but as it was just cancelled everywhere, it's just like, oh, okay, yeah. So there was just no funding immediately for sort of anything. You just had to batten down the hatches, so to speak.
Yeah. You mentioned the Patreon there, and I'd written that down because I'd noticed that you'd started the Patreon. and that you've been writing music for that. I notice you have done 2 or 3 of Tim Burgess's listening parties on Twitter. And they have literally been a savior for so many people. They are so popular. They have tens of thousands of people joining in. Was that something fun? Did you enjoy doing that? Because I imagine it sort of connected you, with your fans and people that you perhaps knew, like Tim.
It kind of reignites the love that you had of the work that you were doing at that particular time. Like, if you can imagine, 1983, and I was doing that job there, and things have moved on so many, years and years go by, and so many things are connected to the experience that you had. And so you don't dwell on it. You don't dwell on much at all in those cases. So to suddenly dwell on it, so you go back and you listen to it, and you hear it. A lot of the time, I purposely don't listen to North America because it reminds me of when I had a fantastic budget and I had Jeff Emerick to work with in Air Studios, and on this huge Neve desk with Jeff, which I couldn't believe it anyway, that I was working with the guy that made Penny Lane, and you're not going to the studio. You're going to the studio with the guy that made Penny Lane. You turn up every day, and everything you've done sounds absolutely mind-blowing. I still can't believe I couldn't get Haircut 100, the band, to get into Jeff Emerick. They were not having any of it. I just couldn't believe they were not the Beatles fans. I was this huge Beatles fan, and I just wanted to sound. Well, actually, I wanted to sound like Imperial Bedroom, Elvis Costello, because that's the album that Jeff had just recorded.
Yes.
Right. And it sounded so cinematic. It just sounded vast, like a vast landscape, like, the best landscape you'd ever seen painted. So I just thought, I want to sound like that. Could I sound like that?
How was it listening to those albums back then? Did you enjoy that experience?
Oh, it's amazing. And having Pino on bass, so I was listening back to certain songs where, I was back where Pino was in the studio.
Was that Pino Palladino?
Yeah.
Oh, so he's a Cardiff boy like myself.
He is, yeah.
He is one of the best, and still to this day is just one of the best.
Yeah. So Pino on bass, Dave Mattox on drums. So this was, a dream band. You're just looking around and everything's wonderful. So it's all you have to do. Your job is come up with stuff for people to play to, and you do that because that's what comes naturally to you. So it's like, wow.
Yeah. Before we go any further, I'm going to drag you back kicking and screaming to growing up, and wondering if there was music in your house when you were growing up, and if your parents were big gig goers. What was the music like when you were a kid?
Music was everywhere in our house. My father was a huge jazz, and Stan Kenton live was always in the house, always being played. So it was just like there was a huge big band continually playing throughout the house. And the first gig I went to was Ray Charles, Oscar Peterson, and Count Basie at one bill. Hammersmith Odeon.
You are kidding.
Yeah, that was my first gig.
I'm just going to drop my mic on your behalf.
Yeah, that's what I thought music was.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be Mum and Dad, and Mum couldn't go, and I went with Dad.
How old would you have been then, Nick? Do you remember?
I've thought about this a lot. I thought I'm going to Google it and try and find out the exact gig, the night it was. But I was probably around 10 or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was.
See, that's like going to your first football match, and it's a 5-5 draw, and you go. All gigs are like this.
Yeah, and I'm always trying to remember who had played where. I think it was Ray Charles was on first, I think, and Count Basie was on last, and I think Oscar Peterson. But it was just one after the other of brilliance. I remember just being mesmerised, but thinking, oh, okay, this is what music was. So it's starting off on quite a high.
Do you remember other things? Because I suppose at that age, I think we'd have glimpses, memories. Is there remember from that night whether it was the sounds? Did it sound loud to you? What was the reaction of the people, or smells, or colours, or things like that? Is that how you sort of remember things?
Yeah, it is. I remember Oscar Peterson. You hear him louder than the piano because he kind of he got hums along. So it was being picked up, and I was here because we were right at the back. I was hearing that really clearly. So I remember thinking, that's interesting. And now, looking back, I've made connections with all these places. Like I've gone to see Woody Herman at Fairfield Halls in Croydon as well with my dad.
Wow.
And I remember being in these plush seats. I remember them being plush. Everything was plush. Going to see The Sound of Music as well. That was a plush seat, and there was. I thought it was gold. The railings were gold.
Yes.
And my mind, they were just solid gold. So they were solid gold, red, and curtains, these amazing curtains, and people that were brave enough to come out and do something amazing like that. And then I didn't think I was ever going to be on that stage at all. I wasn't thinking that at the time. I was just mesmerized being there, wide-eyed, seeing this stuff, and actually at the time thinking how brave you do that thing where I could never do anything like that. These are amazing. And then I played Hammersmith Odeon and Fairfield Halls since. So I stood in that place looking out, and
that is beautiful.
That's an amazing thing. I sometimes pinch myself about that. Like, have I really done that? I became a musician. Wow, I did that.
Yes.
Oh, that's pretty amazing. I no wonder my parents were gobsmacked when I did it, and like they came to see me at Hammersmith Odeon, and were kind of so overwhelmed emotionally because at the time I was thinking, be cool, because you're filled with all that stuff at the time. But now I'm, they're not here on this planet. I'm looking back with these golden memories, and at the time I was full of all these dreams, wild dreams to do this stuff, and now looking back and going, that's absolutely amazing. I'd love to write about, because if you start to write about stuff, other things will pop out. All these unconscious, subconscious memories will come out, and I probably will remember all the smells from that evening. Everything will. The nipping off for a chalk ice. So I'll probably remember exactly what chalk ice it was.
Yeah.
The walls.
So did you end up going to quite a lot of gigs with your parents then?
Yeah, that they were jazz goers, and all through their lives they would. I mean, we still used to go to the Bull's Head in Barnes together to watch, the Tony Lee Trio and Bill Lesage. And
that's I've never been to that jazz club, but I know that it's massively renowned. I was at the Children's Literature Festival with a theatre production a couple of years ago, and we saw the jazz. Well, I saw the jazz club and went, "Oh, need to go there," because that's been around for forever, basically, hasn't it? As long as Ronnie Scott's, or
yeah, it has. And when jazz musicians are in town, they pop down for a gig and they'll just sit in with the band. So sometimes we're lucky enough to see all manner of brilliant musicians just pop up and get on the drums, get on the mic, and
So what a start to gig life. What then would you class as your first gig that you chose, that Nick was like, I want to go and see this artist? What can you remember what that would have been?
Yeah, that would have been across the road from Fairfield Halls at the Croydon Greyhound, and that's when punk kicked in. And I used to go every week to see the bands. So the first band, I think the first one was Talking Heads, and they were playing with this little band called Dire Straits supporting. And
Dire Straits was supporting Talking Heads.
Yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
they all looked the same. I mean, Dire Straits then had t-shirts, sweaty t-shirts, and guitars up high, and they were just this like. It was really nicely. It was like I thought it was like the Rubinoos a bit, like Rubinoos mumbling Rubinoos.
Yes.
Yeah.
We liked all these Berkeley Records bands and like the Feelies and stuff. I liked bands because of glasses, shirts, tiny little details that you noticed that you picked up on. So that's why I went to see Talking Heads, because I'd seen, wow, they've got the bass player plays a Fender Mustang, and a Fred Perry. Well, I'm in love. And they've got songs about buildings and books and what is this? And it felt so creative because of what you've been used to as well. But it wasn't that dissimilar to, sitting down and listening to Steely Dan and going, why? How on earth do they make this music? This is music from space people. That have been also joined with other space people like Oscar Peterson. How do they do that? And you pick up a guitar, which I'd done, and you do learning G, playing G. And you think, God, you want to do so much, but and then you get a band together and you play G for about an hour, and
with your tongue sticking out the side of your mouth as well.
Yeah, exactly. You're really trying to be this stuff, but you just know how to stand there, and kind of play G and go, whoa, whoa, and my friend Rob Stroud, who I used to work with, we'd started a band together, and we just used to stand in a room and do that for hours and hours and hours, thinking, but you just keep turning up. It's like the novel, you just keep turning up.
That's it.
And then one day you'll be going, oh well, good evening, Sir Paul. So amazing that you could do this today.
What you've just said there prompts 1,000 questions. I've got so many questions to ask just from that. The Greyhound, can you quickly describe that as a venue? Because I can't get my head over the you saw Talking Heads supported by Dire Straits. How big was this? Was this just a local pub?
It was like a village hall behind a pub, I think. It was like, I think it was the Greyhound pub, and they had a hall attached to it. Because I saw lots of bands there beforehand, rock bands, like Queen, but they weren't Queen, but they just sounded and looked like Queen.
Right, okay.
And then somebody had just started booking punk bands in there. So I saw Talking Heads, Dire Straits, the Heartbreakers. They were brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Wow.
And then the one that really blew my mind was XTC, because it was right at the beginning of their, the punk career.
Yeah.
And, they did science fiction, and they do that thing where they stop, and they all start again, and it's just, I couldn't believe it. Colin Moulding, he was just, he had a bigger bob. It was a huge bob with a really thick hair that came around and, a bit slightly longer. And even things like, I remember looking up and he had a cold sore, and I thought, cool. That's really cool. I'll have to get one of those. I think I've had one of those, yeah. Oh, next time I get one, that's really cool. It's that thing of, I'd never ever seen anybody on top of the pots with a cold sore before,
Yeah.
So it was like he just seemed to just be,
Yeah. Cold sores were very punk. Very punk.
Yeah, it was a bit, wasn't it?
How many of you would have been how big was this? Maybe a couple of hundred?
Yeah, I'd say that. Yeah, it was slightly bigger village hall. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Very simple layout, very simple. And there was never any big lights or anything. Well, the Boomtown Rats bought big lights.
Which of these musicians inspired you to start a band? Can you remember when you thought, that's what I want to do?
Well, that happened a bit earlier than that, when my brother, he was a brilliant guitarist, and he was in bands, and they used to be a bit like Dr. Feelgood.
Wow.
They used to do, actually, She Does It Right. That's the first time I heard the song. I didn't know Dr. Feelgood's version, so I didn't know it with harmonica on it. So I just to hear them do it, and it's just brilliant. I was a big fan of my brother's band. I'd go and see them, and they left their equipment up because we lived in pubs, so they could leave their equipment in the pub upstairs. There was always a derelict room somewhere, and I remember this particular time. It was where they shared the rehearsal space with 2 Alsatian dogs who just pooed everywhere. So in amongst the Alsatian poo and the equipment, I switched the equipment on and just started to kind of mess around with the microphone. And because punk was happening, the first thing that came out, and was my mouth was just kind of Johnny Rottney sounding thing. But then it was seeing XTC and seeing how they encapsulated all the electricity, I think. Then coupled with the jam, I mean, that was unbelievable energy that I'd seen. I hadn't seen that kind of energy. That was pure power when I saw the jam at the Croydon Greyhound.
Wow.
They were unbelievable. It was the energy that came off the stage, pure venom. It was like from Paul Weller as well, and you've got 2 snakes coming at you at once. You've got Bruce Foxton as well. You're jumping around super high everywhere, running across the stage, and Paul Weller just spitting out his lyrics about England and about things that were going on. I'd never seen anything like it.
And Rick Buckler sitting on his stool like a bouncer, just like, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah. He's kind of like baking, isn't he? He's kind of baking, and he's doing stuff, and he's he's doing things. And,
did it feel like something? Did you feel that you were part of something in that movement? Because everyone that I hear that was lucky enough to see the jam in the early days explains the experience in exactly the same way, which makes me have to believe that it was exactly that it was powerful, energetic, but it seemed like it was perhaps different. Did you feel that you were maybe part of a movement, or that there was something going on?
Absolutely, 100%. When my girlfriend left me for a punk guy, I knew I was part of something, and I didn't want, I had no choice, but I was involved. I was involved in this thing that's going on. Things are seriously happening here.
Yeah, and I don't like it.
You've got to up your game here. You've got to get Poe going. Otherwise, you are going to be left out of it. Get rid of your hush puppies, Nick. Get Poe going. So, I used to do things like take a day off and try and find the Clash. I went to Camden and went looking on sort of bomb sites for them. Because I'd seen in this book, Caroline Coon, I think it was Caroline Coon, she wrote a book about punk, quite an early one. So I would be scouring through this, just going like, okay, white T-shirt, looks a bit like James Dean. Okay, bit Marlon Brando. Right, I've got to get a white T-shirt. Where can I get a white T-shirt? Marks. Oh, surely not. It's going to be like, there's another one. There's a string vest, and and how's the hair going? And, and what's this bomb site they look like? This derelict land. I've got to, where is it? They're not saying where it is. Camden, right. Okay, let's go there. So I went there, and I thought, when I see Bernie Rhodes, the manager, he's what does he look like? He's kind of, I thought they're all mythological. And everything was fascinating. I learnt everything about what was going on, because I was convinced then, when I started the band with Rob at work, that we were going to start a band, and then probably next month we were going to be massive.
Of course, that's how it happens.
Match, obviously playing at Finsbury Park, and
yes,
actually it's going to happen. It's just going to happen. And so I was, walking around, and it was a time of Baker Street. You couldn't get away from the Baker Street. Everywhere you went, you even had it in your head all the time. The soundtrack was that sax. That music was playing around. If it wasn't that, it was. It's a living thing. You know, this was,
Oh yeah, yeah.
that was really what was going on. There was no punk in the charts. I mean, yeah. So the punk was literally in Wardour Street. I used to go to Sniffing Glue, the shop, and just look through all the stuff, finding out, you know, Step Forward records. I bought the Cortinas, Fascist Dictator. You know.
Yes.
I played that over and over. I just thought that was absolutely brilliant.
Yes.
And I learned that. It's like, oh, yeah. I didn't know what a fascist was. I just, fascist dictator. Yeah. Hadn't got a
Sounded good though.
Sounded
good.
What it was.
So what was your first gig then as a performer?
Yeah, that was probably the big one. The proper gig was the Wellington, Waterloo. And at that particular time, the band, because, you know, it's not like nowadays where you get a band name and you've got to stick to it because you've got a website and everything else. You could change it pretty much 5 minutes before you went on stage. And you could do that gig and then end. And then you never use that again. You know, you just call yourself anything. And we were Rugby that night because it was the mod revival at the time. Because by the time, Rob and I had taken everything we knew up to that point. And actually, Rob sent me a recording of that gig at the Wellington Waterloo. So I've got it. I've listened to it, and it's like, oh my God, wow. You know,
and was it good? Was it good? Did you enjoy listening to it?
Yeah, really, really good, really tight. I mean, you know, some of the lyrics that I was singing about were, you know, because I used to just make up stuff all the time. That was how it developed into the nonsense of Haircut 100. Because
during a gig?
Yeah, definitely. I'd be improvising all the time.
See, I'm not surprised by that, Alex. I mean, I've been watching some even not even live performances of you, but videos, and you're cheeky so-and-so, Mr. Hayward. There are a lot of sideways looks to the camera. There was always that feeling that, yeah, I know what I'm doing here. This is crazy, and I'm loving this. But
it's a weird sort of fearlessness, but also nerves that you didn't know what you were doing. So I felt much more comfortable having to make it up, because recreating didn't seem to feel as comfortable. I think my brother and I, you know, families throw up opposites, don't they? They throw up. I think it's probably the family unit. Like if we were wolves, you know, you'd get one wolf that was better at this and another that was better at that. You know, so that the family can help out on the farm or whatever it is. And, you know, my brother loves to get everything exactly right, and has, you know, that's why he had a tribute band, because he loved that tribute to doing exactly that. Whereas I had that thing where I just couldn't learn, so I made up stuff instead. I wanted to be him, he probably wanted to be me. I'm just, you know, we probably wanted to be each other, and that's a family, isn't it? That's what happened.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be able to learn stuff and do it exactly as is. But because I didn't have that ability to take in stuff, I would be just making it up. Like this conversation, it just feels a lot easier for it to not be scripted.
Did that ever stop?
Well, it's an interesting question, because it does, once you do your first body of work, then it's like things have to change. You know, the pressure's on. You know, you've done that, and so you have to go out and be your own tribute band, if you like.
Yes. Oh, interesting point.
Doing the performance of it, because, you know, it's just like if you're an improv. It's like when you look at Reggie Watts and you think, guy's got to be improvising the whole caboodle.
Yeah.
It's so funny, isn't it? It's so out.
Absolutely.
Everything's just off. But you don't know, and this is the whole point. But sometimes he has to have that medium to do that, where you might get sort of 80% is great that night, I've improvised sets and stuff and had a rough idea of what I'm doing, but I do find, writing on the spot as well. Like I'll do that at a gig. I'll just write. I'm gonna write a song now. It's it relaxes me to do that, to just do it. Now sometimes I stood there and the song's been really good, and it's like I can't remember it, but it's really good. But sometimes it's not good. You can't have that. In fact, it's embarrassing. But that's the part of creativity that's the wonder, isn't it? You have to be vulnerable enough to be embarrassing, to get the thing that is like, oh, wow, that's really good. But I wouldn't have got that had I stood in my own way.
Being with Haircut 100 as opposed to your solo career, did you feel that constrictive then? Did you feel being in a band, you weren't able to do that? You weren't able to, perform like that and maybe sort of live on the edge or improvise. So did you feel like, no, I've got to just do this on my own? Or am I just seeing something not there?
It's actually nicer, a lot easier, and more creative to be in a band situation, because you do your thing and somebody else does everybody does their thing. They've all got the ingredients and they bring the ingredients. Whereas I find sometimes working with people that are musicians that aren't in a band situation, they will come with a completely different approach every time. Whereas a band member, you get the idea. Like if you've got a band member and you've got a bass line, that's what you're going to play every time.
Yeah.
You've got a conga player, you've got your part, and it suits the song, and you play it, and it's like, and they'll bring all the other ingredients together, and they just work. That's the magic and the wonder of it. You can see that when people get back together and they all play their ingredients, they're a bit astounded by, oh yeah, it sounds like us, doesn't it? It's a bit like, oh, well, of course it was. It's like tomato soup, If you get back and you put all the ingredients in, it tastes exactly like it. So it's actually really nice to be in that situation, because in a band, you don't have to worry about other people's stuff. But actually, as a solo artist, you've got to you've got to sort of manage everyone and everything, and everybody's, because sometimes you've got to free rein yourself, so you might even come and do a different version of what you did last time. So,
do you have a preference, or do you just appreciate both experiences? You appreciate being in the group, but you also appreciate...
I appreciate both. But, I must say, there's something great about being in a band. You can see it with everyone. They love being in a band, and then the other stuff is the stuff that dismantles a band. They're just like any kind of relationship, partnership, anything that goes, you see it in so many areas, football teams, stores, Harrods, businesses, everything that goes on. It's just, will it stay? And you only see that stuff as well when you learn, and sometimes through living. It's a process of doing, isn't it? That you go, that's how you do it. Because at one point, there was a moment when I just thought, right, okay, so you signed to Mute Records. That's what you do. That's what you do. There's no other record company you should sign to. Just go straight to Mute Records, do a 50-50 deal, and it'll just keep going. But you don't know that until, at the time, you're just all like, scurrying around, all doing your thing. Nobody knew that. We used to hang out with Depeche Mode, and they were sweet guys, but they were bickering. But that bickering was really creative. You could tell that they were it's creative bickering. I find that bands that don't bicker are the ones that don't flicker.
There it is. That's going to be the advert for this episode.
In the early 80s, kind of around about 82, 83, I felt like there was a real kind of split between the dark and the light. And Depeche Mode is one example. The Cure, early Cure, but I also felt like there was a lot of light there as well. I mean, considering that it was quite a dark time anyway, the Falklands War and the miners' strike and all this kind of stuff. So Pelican West, just such a summery album, and I felt like you were kind of like sunshine, basically. And did you feel like there was pressure on you to, be like an antidote to some of the real gloom that was going on? What did you feel like your role in the musical landscape was at that time?
Well, it was what was happening. It was a very naive little wave that was coming along. It was the same wave that Claire Grogan was surfing. She was on the surfboard next to us. And then there was Bobby Bluebell, and there was a Bluebell surfing, and everybody was surfing in on a very naive wave. That hadn't been around. That wave wasn't naive when it was Echo and the Bunnymen, U2, Teardrop Explodes, Monochrome Set. I'd lived through all these waves that were coming along. This wave was kind of, there was something happening. The new romantic thing was evolving. Out of posture into naivety. It just was happening around about that end of 81, 82. There was just a injection of naivety. There just was, and it didn't hang around too long. It did turn into darkness. I do remember making North of America, and Depeche Mode were doing Master and Servant, and it's like, it had only been a year before that it had been like New Life. And bow ties and kind of, all I want to do is see you. Oh, blissful songs, really loveliness. And then here we are with Master and Servant. So you're right, it was, and there I was in the studio doing my own form of melancholy, and it was definitely not the sunshine percolated pop funk. It definitely wasn't that.
No.
The period was starting to change, definitely, yeah.
But it felt like it was needed. I mean, Bucks Fizz was another one as well, and I think Bucks Fizz can get a bit of a raw deal as kind of the Eurovision band, but they did some incredible pop records. And I remember speaking to Andy Parisi, who did a lot of drumming with Bucks Fizz, not on the first album, but certainly after that. And I felt like there was a real need for that as well at that time. Not that it was kind of, I mean, maybe it was naive as you said, but also needed. Do you know what I mean?
Well, related to that then, Chris and Nick, what were the Haircut 100 live gigs like? What were your audience like? Did you see that there was an audience there that just wanted some fun?
They evolved. Like at first, it was just pure London. We would play after the Fire Engines. The Fire Engines would play at the Embassy Club one week, and then we'd play there the next. And I remember the sort of like lighting guy saying, do you want dry ice? That kind of thing. It's like, no, we're cool, we're good. And it's that thing. I'd got my polo boots ready, and I've got I'm ready to sort of like go on stage, and everything's nice and clear. We've got Phil ready. He's going to play some sax up on the veranda. It's going to be different. And then you'd get written about, and Susie from Susie and the Banshees were, because our manager was going out with Susie, they were listening to our demos. So that was our audience. It was more, we're playing in London, cool band, and then that evolved as soon as, and then Enemy sort of that, and then as soon as there was this moment where Depeche Mode had done it, they led the way. They were the sort of pioneers. They'd gone and done. It wasn't smash hits. They wasn't around yet.
So Looking.
Oh boy, yeah, and Looking and other things. And we went to a meeting with a press agent. It was Judy, and she said, "Do you want to do these?" And I remember like looking and seeing Blondie and XTC in these magazines as I grew up. You know, my girlfriend Laura would like have pictures of Deborah Harry on her wall, and you know, and I thought, God, you know, there's a brilliant one of Annie Partridge, and I thought, well, they did it, so let's do it. And it was a definite turning point at that particular time. We said we're going to do those magazines, so we did those pictures, and then we went on Top of the Pops, and then we were playing Hicksted Cinderellas the next night after Top of the Pops, and it was a complete change. The audience went to the gig, and it was different. Everything was different. It just got.
In what way? In what way was it different?
Younger,
more whooping.
Yeah.
Younger, and then when we did the next tour, it was places like Apollo, Manchester, you know, and suddenly down the front, younger, and it's just happening. It's just happening. And then the Sun on the Mirror would do kind of Haircut Mania, which meant people then thought there was, and then
yeah.
And I was thinking, well, this happened to the Beatles, you know, and then you think, I better watch Help or Hard Day's Night, you know. I'd never seen these films. And then you watch them and you think, you know, and then you're in Liverpool and you're on the veranda and you go out and there's everybody from the gig outside, and yeah, you're living that thing. Then the next minute you go out I remember there was a time coming out and we went to get in the car, and it wasn't a Ford Escort or normally the cars that we got into, it was a limousine. And you know, you're sitting in a limousine just thinking, I've seen this in oh my God, oh no, I remember going to see Stardust. That would be the band Stardust. I'm really, really wanting this, and this has happened. Am I going to have a villa in Spain next, and then be dressed in white, and it's going to be the end of the film, and I'm going to have, you know, be drugged out of my head like David Essex was.
Well, is that how you felt at the time? Were you able to kind of appreciate that this was something that you had kind of aimed for and longed for years, and then, you know, you finally had it? Did it feel like an out of body experience, or were you able to go, oh, excellent, job done, nice one?
Well, looking back at it now, no, I definitely wasn't able to. I think self-worth, which I didn't then have an idea about then. I didn't have an idea about self-worth at all. It's funny, I've just not long watched Tina Turner, and that's a fascinating story of self-worth, because here is somebody that, you know, really didn't come from amazing beginnings at all, and at one point she must have thought, I've got to run my own life now, and, you know, nobody's going to be falling at my feet. I've got to go out there and lead this now, and I've got to go out there and feel worthy enough to attract the best manager in the world, and she did, and to attract the best record company. And, you know, this was her wild dream, to be bigger than the Rolling Stones, which she achieved in Europe. You know,
yeah,
enormous. The documentary is amazing because it's so, at a time now, she's just looking back on her story and her career, and it's lovely. It's like a documentary without any kind of, none of the ego, none of the urgency of the period at all. It's just like reflective totally. But
you recognise something in that, though, did you, in that documentary?
Yeah, the self-worth, because I did not feel that at all. I mean, they call it imposter syndrome, don't they? They've got a name for it now. But I just remember at the time thinking, what? You know, really kind of, oh God, you know, not calling people back when they call you, because you just felt like, no, they didn't really want to. Did that really happen?
Did that affect you performing live then, Nick? Did you start feeling nervous? Did you get nerves? Did things change for you mentally or physically performing live when it sort of turned like that?
Yeah, because, you know, you have the confidence of first. Yeah, there is a every band will say this. There's a confidence that you have. XTC would have had it. Squeeze would have had it. You can see it in the early performances with bands.
Yeah.
Swagger that they have. Look at the Jam. They had it oozing out. This camaraderie, this thing, this unstoppable machine. It's wonderful. You do have that, and I don't know if I find it amazing when I look at people that have sustained that. It's astonishing, and it's got to be down to things, just simple things like not feeling worthy. I mean, it's a cliche, but it just is that. Individuals in it, people having self-sabotage issues, but it coming out as pushing people away. Somebody thinking, I don't feel worthy enough for this, and this is not in my conditioning. They don't think it, because otherwise they do something about it.
I don't want to be your therapist here, Nick, but have you found your self-worth?
Yes. Yeah, I'm enough.
Brilliant.
Just as I am, even if I, never earn anything ever again or do anything ever again, I feel enough, because it's no good doing anything, because all along in my career, I never really felt like worthy or enough.
It's such a surprise to hear that. It's such a surprise to hear that. And by that, I don't mean saying it's wrong, but, as fans of your music, I'm sure Chris and I both are thinking, but this is Nick Heyward. This is Haircut 100. This is Nick Heyward's solo career. This is an amazing musician. So I'm glad that you reached that somewhere in life and realized that self-worth, but also from a creative point of view that you are fantastic. In fact, this is going to take me on to, we've never done this on the podcast before. We never announce in advance or when we're recording interviews who our guests is going to be. But we posted and said, look, we're speaking with Nick. What questions would you ask? And it was so funny because they're our peers and your peers. And it was so funny because it's like everyone just turned into a child again. And I just want you to know just how much love there is out there for Nick Heyward. It was just so nice. Now,
shall I, before we get to the serious questions, shall I get a couple of them out of the way? So Kirsty and Roz, they both asked, Nick Heyward, how did you cope with being so beautiful?
Well,
and
it's funny,
and
because
these are the questions we were getting, Nick. These are actual real questions.
Well,
I'm not going to let him answer that, Chris.
I said I would ask.
It's funny because
and
I remember being. This is such a strange thing because Sarah I've talked to, my love of my life. We've talked about this stuff because she didn't know me then, but a picture would pop up of, say, like when I was 21 or something, and the time when when everything's happening, when your hair's happening, everything's happening, and you've gone out and somebody's taken a really great picture of you, and that's not really how you look, but you look, and you look at you kind of remember this picture, and you look and you go, what a hunk, and what, you just think, wow, and then you remember back to that time when you were riddled with insecurity. At that time I was I know I was thinking, oh God, I wish I was just taller. I wish I had a bigger penis. I wish it would stay harder longer. I wish my hair was blonder. I wish my skin wouldn't come out in spots. I wish I was more talented. Why have I not written a song as good as Yesterday? Why am I not as big as Duran Duran? Why has George Michael got such a beautiful voice and mine sounds like the Cats? So, all this stuff, comparison with others and the hell that you put yourself through on a regular basis. And yet here, many years later, you just look back and you go, oh my God, what on earth was I thinking? I should have just been enjoying being, him. I should have enjoyed being him, that guy there, who was just enough. But of course, I wasn't enough. I wasn't enough at all. I was riddled with insecurity and doubt, and it was covered up by bravado, by ego, or smoking, or whatever it was, or trying to be clever.
Of course.
Trying to be. But it was, really the truth. And also living through the whole kind of guilt of trying to be in a relationship but not actually being very good at it, and then that kind of stuff. And there's plenty of people around to make you feel really bad about yourself, really guilty. I could not do relationships. It was a really hard thing to do, because at some point, that scene in About a Boy with Hugh Grant, where at some point you're gonna get it. You haven't been a man, have you? And you're emasculated completely, and it's all you've done is thought, I'm not into you that much, but I can't say, I'll just be with you for 20 years. Instead, that kind of stuff, anything but just face up to just, that stuff. And men feel it, women feel it, people feel it, but they just haven't got the tools of communication. And you're probably never going to get it. Some people never get the tools of communication and then just die, not there. And I mean, look at people, they're riddled with it. Look at George Michael. I mean, millions and millions of pounds, and the success and a voice from heaven didn't mean that he could get past 50 and go into living elder years and just relax and enjoy all that wonderful life. And all of us who just think, George, you're amazing. You're just an amazing guy. Look at you. I don't give a flying fuck what you look like. You're brilliant in every way. Look at, and for him, just to sort of like wake up and go, look in the mirror and go, I love you, George. I'm just going to, I've done my bit. I've done enough. Careless Whisper is just a moment, you couldn't make that moment again, ever, because it was that moment. It was that moment to come up with that song in that time, for it to record it the way it was, for it to sound like it was, for everything to be around like it was, everything. And just for him to sort of like go, I totally accept that I'm older now, but it just looked like he was struggling inwardly. He felt everything so deeply, and just couldn't just do the basics, which is just live,
You've answered that question in the most wonderful way.
Yeah, thank you very much, because that was a really flippant question. It was a really flippant question, but it was a lovely answer. Thank you. I'm just going to have one more flippant question, but it's from my wife. But yeah, I'm not sure I should be asking this really, but she says, so this is my wife talking, and she's saying, "Will you marry me in 1982?" So again, I'm going to translate that. I think it's a rhetorical question.
I mean, well, I tell you one thing. She's so lucky that she didn't marry me. You wouldn't believe how crap I would have been.
I thought you were going to say she was so lucky that she married me.
Yeah.
Oh, Nick.
But this is it. This is the loveliness of it. I don't know. It's a fascinating subject. Why? I didn't want to be in a relationship with Andy Partridge or the people that I idolized. And you have to get into the mind of a woman, I think, a girl, or that time, because they have that thing of wanting to be with somebody, in a sort of unrealistic way. But it is actually very real. And I've talked to women now, 55, still, that is the thing. And I find that absolutely fascinating. I mean, it's a book probably on it, because if you went into it deeply, it's a fascinating subject. It's a subject that I can't see, because I do remember idolizing musicians and stuff and people that did things and things. But I never looked at an actress, say, or somebody that was attractive and just thought, I actually want to be with them. I remember once a guy saying, a therapist, somebody was in therapy, and they said that their partner was they thought their partner was looking at everybody and just didn't want to be with them. They just wanted to be with everybody else. And the therapist said, well, do they actually want to be with them? Because if they do, then that's a problem. You're going against the whole of the universe there, and that comes back to that brilliant line from Graham Coxon of Blur, when he went to therapy, and he said the therapist said to him, if you think you're so in control, go down to the coast and try and stop the tide coming in, and that's it. Well, some going against the whole of the universe. It's not good. It's better to go with it,
Oh man, I love you, Nick Heyward. I want to marry you.
I've enjoyed this podcast very much, guys. You are great,
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Rob Lacey says Pelican West is still to this day the ultimate summer album, and he wants to know what your favourite song from that album is and why.
Right, it kind of changes. I've always had a soft spot for Milk Film, but all of them really equally. I mean, I was listening to. I actually played Marine Boy the other day because I was trying to recall the brilliant piano solo, and it was done by my mate Michael, and I'd forgotten that he came into the studio. I said, Michael, you play piano, don't you? Yeah. Nobody would believe me that a mate from, from the sort of like pub could play piano. And he came in and he pretty much did that solo in Marine Boy. It's like Oscar Peterson. It really is. It's so intricately woven. It's like seeing an amazing piece of lace done. It's like, wow. It's like a song. You've got this really innocent song with a pair of suspenders in the middle. Like, where'd they come from? And I just remember him doing it, and that was that. It was never really talked about much, and he wasn't asked to join the band. Everybody else was asked to join the band, but Michael wasn't.
Yeah, you went from 3 to 8 in a very quick...
That's the power of not being able to say no. Everybody we did have the brass section join for a while. It was that thing of everybody was pretty much in it. And that was the trouble with Haircut 100. There was nobody to say no. It was just a massive free-for-all. It was the Magical Mystery Tour, if you like. Everybody was on the coach that nobody knew that it was here. And, and it ended in this hotel with everybody around a big table, everybody thinking they were kind of in the band. I'm the manager. Oh, no, I'm the manager. Well, actually, I'm the manager. The record company said they were the manager, and it's a kind of consortium of management. And then it's like, well, actually, I'm the manager's manager, and I'm the lawyer. I'm the lawyer. And there was all these people all around this big table in a hotel. Blair and I laugh our heads off about the story of Haircut 100, because if it was captured on film, it would be a comedy. It really would.
That needs to happen. I'm making a note. That needs to happen.
Because you've got to laugh about it, because everything that could go wrong went wrong. But that was the kind of, it had to happen in a way. Everything had to happen the way it did.
Helen Ellis wants to know, of the artists and peers around you in the 80s, who did you most admire and listen to as well?
Well, I was a bit frustrated in the 80s because I was a Smiths fan, but there was no one else really like them, and it got less and less. If you can imagine everything, getting higher, people were starting to go, production. If you can imagine, hair bands were coming out in America. It was Casey Kasem. It was all, to be more kind of big production and do that stuff. And I was still a Smiths fan. I was still that
Amazing.
thing of, but just get a 3-3-5 and to come up with a really good riff and then sing some wacky stuff over it. I like that, and so it was just got really hard to like the stuff that you like. But I always had everything from behind, everything that I'd learned. So I would always listen to Earth, Wind and Fire and know that, there's nothing more mesmerising than September. Again, wizards making this stuff. But actually, where I was at that particular time, I remember, but I did have people that I admired. I mean, I admired George Michael. I think he was a naturally gifted, somebody to be able to take and make a song. He really did make a song. Like I make a song. Like I sit and do stuff. You do it and you play the bass and you play the guitar and you come up with a thing. And that's what he'd do. There are people that are just sit down and makes pop songs, and but he really did it absolutely. He was able to sing it as well. Like I think many people could sing something like Faith or Wake Me Up Before You Go Go, and it wouldn't be as commercial as when he does it. He made a song like Kate Winslet, makes really, quite ordinary dialogue, makes it brilliant in the same way. And I think there's some artists like that. I mean, look at Tina Turner, what she did with What's Love Got to Do With It. I mean, through the film, that was a demo, wasn't it? $4 Fizz. And it did sound twee.
Yes.
Perfectly twee for them, but not even not even as good good standard for what they were doing. So obviously she was like, oh God, what can I do with it? This song, you joking. And I don't think she was a big fan of it, but look what she did with it. Look what
I love the fact that Tina Turner's cropped up in a couple of episodes now, a couple of interviews that we've done for this pod. Tina Turner's popped up, and it was unexpected the first time. Mr. Gaz Whelan, the Happy Mondays drummer, saying best live performance he's seen.
Wow.
Tina Turner. So and that leads me on to I've just jumped ahead because there was one more question. Yeah, and this is one that everyone needs to know.
It is true. Yeah, Claire Holcomb says, "Who had the best haircut, you or Kershaw?" Which Nick? Hayward or Kershaw?
I think Nick had the highest. He had more lift. He was more like
he had more lift.
He was a wave from Hawaii, and I was more Cornwall, I think.
Yeah, he was Waikiki and you were Newquay.
He had a little bit of I don't know, something going on at the back as well. He had a wave that would follow. It was like lifted here.
Yeah.
Oh, he had the mullet, didn't he? He had the mullet thing going.
Yeah.
Nobody can ever find a picture of me unless it's been fiddled with. I've never had a mullet.
Brilliant.
I had one last week before I had this haircut.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
No, the thing I was going to say was Gaz Whelan was talking about doing Top of the Pops at I don't know, 1987, something like that, and he was there with the Stone Roses. And so he and Ian Brown saw Tina Turner. She was doing a recording that wasn't in the actual studio, and they said hello and all that kind of stuff. I'm just wondering if you had experienced some kind of random encounters in the Top of the Pops studio, because it always fascinates me that all these charting acts or bands are kind of smashed together in this random nature as to whether they're a climber or if you're a climber then you're in. And so was it a bit of an odd experience going on Top of the Pops?
It was you have to get over the fact that it wasn't as you've watched over the years. It's nothing like that. It's you go into it and it's just an empty big aircraft hangar style room with stages and a few people that they make to look like lots of people. I remember thinking being on one stage and the stage opposite Culture Club were getting ready, and George sort of waving like this, which was really, really nice. And I remember thinking, they sent their demo to support us really early on. And I remember making that sort of like connection. there. It wasn't until they did that.
Did they actually end up supporting you?
They were going to, but we chose a band called Weapon of Peace instead, a sort of reggae band. And I still don't know why that was. I mean, it had something to do with this. There was underground dodginess that there's another part of the Haircut 100 story
that's being saved to the book, I think.
Yeah, definitely. There's stuff that was going on behind the scenes.
Quick fire round, yes. So, your favourite voice or vocalist live?
Favourite vocalist live? Wow.
You can only choose one.
Favourite vocalist? Do you know who I'm absolutely in awe of as a vocalist? Jamie Cullum.
Oh, Chris loves him.
I just think he's an absolute natural genius singer live. I follow him on Instagram and wow. You know, there's no chance of him ever, even slightly, going sharp or flat. He just seems to be naturally tuned in. You know, there's no nerves going on. There's just something where he just becomes the song when he's singing it. Even if he's doing a little improv or he's making a song or he's just written a song and he says, you know, guys, I'm just going to play this song. And you can tell that he's reading it off his book and he's going, you say you want to leave. And it's like, oh my God, it's just, wow, and the way he delivers it. So, Jamie Cullum. Yeah.
Jamie Cullum, okay. What's your favourite gig as a performer, or at least one gig where you just thought that was, everything about that was brilliant? The crowd were brilliant. You felt that you were perfect performance. What was your favourite gig?
Prince at Hop Farm in Kent. Yeah.
Oh, you were there. Yeah. You were there watching.
You mean watching gig?
I want both. But you've told us watching. It seems like everyone but Chris and I was at Hop Farm watching Prince.
I couldn't believe it was happening. He arrives on a helicopter. The band arrive and they kind of come on stage and they're sound checking. But it's just the most amazing sound check you've ever heard. He's calling out key changes and time signature changes. So it's going from a kind of like and he's just going, yeah, and then suddenly it's just, and he's got dancers and people wriggling around on stage, and Prince is just playing a little solo here and a little bit of funk in here, and then and then he'll just go, whoo, he'll swing round, do a time change, like half time, sped up, and then he'll go into Purple Rain, and he'll do a few bars of Purple Rain. The place goes nuts, and then he'll get off into another song in the middle.
Yeah.
He's swinging it around, and you're standing there just going, wow.
Yeah. You've got to be a certain character, well, you have to be Prince, to be able to pull that off in front of a massive festival audience. What, to pull off a sound check?
Yeah.
It's crazy, isn't it? Okay, now favorite gig is you performing, where you just thought that was amazing. You came off stage and you were like, that was brilliant.
Yeah, there's so many gigs where I've just thought, little gigs where I've just walked off and thought, well, that was, I don't know, I'd like to do this for a living. You know, this is really, you know, I could actually do this. This is really good because it does feel like that when I go on stage sometimes, like I've never done this before. I'm going to do it fresh because I have to remind myself before I sing Fantastic Day that I'm coming to this. Because if you start to meander off, you've lost it. You're singing automatically, and it's not going to sound like the first time you've done it. It's a bit like when Edward Elgar, you can hear him when he gets up at the Albert Hall and he's got to do Pomp and Circumstance, and he says to the orchestra, play this like you've never heard it before. Because there's something that happens that makes one go off key, and you can sing out of tune because you're not putting in the effort, because you're just going through the motions. So you have to grab hold of the song consciously. That's the thing. So sometimes going on stage and doing that. And there have been gigs. Like there was one when I was supporting Howard Jones at the O2 Indigo, and it wasn't billed or anything. Joe, who manages him, just said, "Oh, we pay you a bit. Do you want to come along and play and just bring the acoustic?" And I was like, "Yeah, fine." So I turned up and just walked on stage and started, just playing and singing, And I love that feeling because that takes me right back to the Wellington Waterloo. They're like, who's this guy? And you stand and fall on the merit of what you're doing right there. Yeah.
Now, Nick, I love what you just said, but I'm only going to say that I believe you sort of 50%, because there's no way a Howard Jones audience asked themselves, who's this fella?
Nah, that's absolutely true.
Well, back to my being like 5 stone overweight,
Oh yeah, maybe they did.
I was kind of suiting the waistcoat. I mean, I don't know what I was going for.
So they all said, who's this Nick Heyward tribute?
I'm going to crack on with the next question, which is your worst ever gig.
Oh,
Let's not dwell on it too much, but worst ever, and you can do it as a punter or as a performer.
I've definitely got that one. It was Windsor Art Centre. Yeah, it was a Saturday night, and I had no idea that it had been billed as Haircut 100, and a load of kind of hen nights had turned up. We're drinking at the bar, and
no,
and I just thought I'll go and do an acoustic gig. I didn't even think it was Saturday night. I didn't realise it was Saturday night. So there was a kind of pressure to be the Saturday night turn, which is a different thing. I don't know. When you're on tour, you realise that there's Monday night gigs, there's Tuesday night gigs. There's different flavour for every show. But then there's a Saturday, and especially anywhere in the UK, on a Saturday night, it's a different thing. So I'd sat home beforehand working out all this stuff, and I'd written this song called "A Flower Came," and I thought, it's like I stand there and I kind of tinkle on my guitar a little bit, so it's like the growth of a flower, and then it starts to bloom, and I thought this is a really lovely way to start the set, like the birth of a seed of a beautiful flower, like the Lotus Sutra. This is amazing. So I walk on stage thinking, like, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and I look at the front row who are a bit like this, and then I look up, and then there's another whoa, They started shouting for Love Plus One and Fantastic Day straight away, and so I started to sing "A Flower Came," and immediately I knew that this was not going to work. It was going to be a struggle. And then it threw me, and normally, which I really enjoy, which is just kind of talking to people and going with the, just improvising, just telling stories and stuff. The first thing I think I came out with is look at the injustice of life, that somebody can look like George Clooney, and somebody else can, have cancer. And it's like, the silence in the place. And the evening went like this, and it got worse. And it was my whole everything. And I'd gone to have acupuncture beforehand because I thought, I'd seen that there was acupuncture around the corner, and I thought, actually, that was one of my best favourite gigs. I had acupuncture before a gig in Canterbury years before. So I'd always thought, I'm going to have acupuncture again, because that's the calmest I've ever been. Gig ever was when I had the acupuncture, which was a girlfriend of mine had put it here in the third eye. So I sat on stage at the Canterbury Theatre and just gone, hello, ladies and gentlemen, I love you. I love you. I've always loved you. I absolutely adore you, And it was just like, they all came out just like, wow, we feel loved. This is amazing. There's nothing going on here. And then, so I thought I'd do that. So I went out Saturday night in Windsor, having had acupuncture, but full acupuncture. So I was in a state of love, and, you know, ready to sing my song about a flower. And it just went worse and worse. And then I made 2 halves out of the evening. And I've got my friend Anthony and Richmond backstage ready to come on and help out and sing some lovely BVs and acoustic. And it's going to be an acoustic alchemy, lovely. And I went off. I said, okay, half time. I went off and I stood there. And Richmond, who hadn't been on stage with me before, and he was a sort of mates, that I said, oh, come and play. He said, how was that, man? You look great out there. I said, Richmond, I'm giving it up. I'm throwing in the towel. I'm never doing this stuff. I hate this. What am I doing? This is awful. I just never want to do it. You know, the real crisis of, you know, that's it. And I actually did not do anything else for years, I think, after that was... Yeah, and I got ill after that as well. That was the beginning of when I was talking to you at the beginning of this about when I, you know, it was around the age of getting to late 40s, early 50s, and you know, something it caught up with me. All the nerves of grinning and bearing it of the years beforehand had just caught up at the Windsor Art Centre, and just, you know, left me in a bloody mess, you know, hung, drawn and quartered.
Just the thought. I love thinking over stuff. And just the thought of you going through that for that Windsor gig and then walking out on stage, finding out it's Builder's Haircut 100 and you've got plumbing hen do or stag do's out there. Oh,
they
my
left,
gosh.
They were just shouting for those songs. I had those songs. I knew they were going to have to wait until the end. Now I would have just stopped and played those songs
twice.
But you know, it's that thing of you play those songs to people and if they're acoustic, and that's what it was. You know, it's like it's not going to have the other instruments on it. You do know that it's not going to have the, you know, and you feel really bad about that.
You know, saxophone.
Like, oh, sorry, but you know, and they've just gone. Listen, I don't know anything about you. Just bring those other instruments with you. Just, you know, what do you mean you haven't got them? You know, I paid
play them.
You.
Play them.
And it's
play that song.
Covers bands make it work. Why can't you?
Ed Sheeran plays lots of instruments at the same time.
Yeah, he just presses a foot thing and off it goes.
Come on, Nick, press the button.
Why don't you have a foot thing? Where's your foot thing, Nick Heyward?
Yeah, it is a bit that, and you know, things like that do happen. You do think that, you know, especially that does pass through your mind when you're standing there and it's all falling apart.
Oh, I just can't imagine my heart. So we take you out of the quick fire round, and a question that we do like to ask, and because you've mentioned venues as well, what is your favourite venue? What's the one venue that you just love going back to? Or do you have one?
I do like the O2 Indigo, I must say. I do like that because it's been designed properly. Everything, you know, you can hear yourself. You don't have to have in-ears. The monitoring system is designed brilliant.
Really, I've not been. That's the second venue within the O2, obviously in London.
Yeah, and I think you know, having an older brother, and him always getting the chopper, and I got the chipper. You know, I don't mind playing at the chipper of gigs while the chopper is, you know, the bigger venue is out there, because I'm used to riding a chipper. You know, I feel good in a chipper situation.
That O2 is massive and just, for me, soulless. The huge thing. So
well, I have to say the only time I've been there was to see Prince, and it wasn't soulless then.
It wasn't soulless then. No, of course it wasn't. You lucky little thing. I like it. Have you ever? Mine is a place in Cardiff, but up here in Manchester, where I now live, the Apollo, Manchester Apollo. Have you played the Manchester Apollo?
Yeah.
I just love, and I don't know what it is. I can't explain it. I think I've always had good sound there. I just love the look of the place. But it just feels you know, I want to wax lyrical when I go in the Apollo because I can just feel, you know, past gigs and artists here. It's a
I do
place.
get that feeling with Chatham. There's a theatre in Chatham
Oh, right.
that I've got that because it was where Ziggy Stardust had done a gig, and it's a small theatre in Chatham, you know, and everybody's kind of played there. And I can feel that, like you said, I can sense that when I'm there, and I enjoy every gig I've done there. I love it in the same way. But I do like standing on stages that are, because I do like Zen environments. I like mid-century modern architecture, and I like a nice basketball court flooring at a gig. You know, they're not great for sound at all, terrible, but I like standing on them. Like there was a Kabuki theater in San Francisco that had this design, Zen kind of design. St. Albans, that's a great theatre because it's got a technical college feel about it, and I do like that feeling of Procter and Gamble designs where it's just where the house feels like it's been not screwed together but just fits together perfectly. You know, there's some joinery gone into it. So I've got this ideal vision of playing at a gig that's been just joined, this joinery together, like a Procter and Gamble house, like the Back to the Future house, and you know you're in there playing on the wooden floor, and I'd love that. And everything was Zen in there. You know, you were playing cedar wood guitar, and everything. It's earthy. I love the earthy environments that you see on I follow Dwell there on Instagram, and the interiors just thrill me. You know, I get really thrilled about seeing a concrete floor. The way they're fitted together, and shelves, and you know, lovely wooden cabinets, and some of the tiles that they use, and the simple architecture. It's really, really pleasing. You feel good. There's an area near us, like a gated community, and we cycle through it sometimes. And when you go through it, you just feel nicer because everything's manicured.
I'll be honest. I didn't expect this chat about architecture with Nick Heyward. I'll be honest, and I like it.
Yeah,
I like it though.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
I find it thrilling. I feel like songs. I'm trying to incorporate that in the music as well. Like when you've got Logic, you start to think, okay, well, let's do something that's more mid-century modern, and you know, don't use all the instruments you've got in here. Use some vintage synths and just create something that is just that you like. You know, because there are certain songs that is not my cup of tea really, but they are. You know, like The Model. You know, songs that you've just gone. You hear it now and you go, God, that's an amazing piece of work. The model and she's looking. You know, at the time it just completely passed me by. It was just. It was there, and lots of people were into it. But, you know, I remember the people that were into it weren't my tribe. That's the way I looked at it at that time.
Yeah, that's right.
So it passes you by, and then you'll capture it lately, and you go, oh, now I know what those guys were into. I see it. I feel like going back in a time machine and saying, you were ahead of your time, weren't you?
Do you know what, Nick Heyward? I've got a piece of paper in front of me, and it tells me that Love Plus One by Haircut 100 was the 14th best-selling UK single in 1982. Do you know what the 15th best-selling single was in 1982?
No.
The Model by Kraftwerk.
Wow.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
You pipped it.
You beat it.
I know. Funny. I remember thinking when Love Plus One was chosen as a single. I remember thinking, really.
I think that's why I was saying those cheeky little looks to the camera. And I think it's the video for Love Plus One. Is that the one by the volcano?
Yes.
Yeah. There's a few little.
Yeah.
You know,
cheeky Hayward wayward looks, eh?
Hayward wayward looks. That's it.
I can't. I do cringe. I must admit. I'd like to work on that.
Oh no! Please don't! Please don't! They absolutely work well.
Are they? Because I kind of like, yeah.
No, it's definitely the way. It's the future, Nick.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Future Nick.
Sideways looks to the camera. Definitely.
Is there anyone that you've not seen live yet, Nick, that you would still love to see? Is there anyone still on your bucket list?
I haven't seen the Stones. I'd like to see this.
You've never seen the Rolling Stones?
No. Yeah, I'd like to. Well, I don't. I won't. I know I won't. I can tell you now. I'm not going to see the Stones. I'm just not. But I'd like.
Did you ever subscribe to the whole Stones or Beatles? Were you one or the other?
I was
or...
not really that black and white, really, because they're so different.
Yeah.
And they are kind of at different times, really.
Yeah, I never understood it.
Yeah, it's kind of. I mean, I know. The Stones were a little bit later and they overlapped, but I associate the Stones with the really late 70s and the really late 60s and kind of early to mid 70s. But anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of see the Stones as well as you've got the early part, but then you've got Angie. That was when I really feel like the Stones. Thank you, sweetie.
Oh, she's good. That's so good.
With his mid-century design mug.
Mid-century mug. His tea. Is that Yorkshire tea?
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful! It's a stork. Nick is pointing to a beautiful painting of a stork in the background.
It's a pelican.
It's a what? A pelican. I'm sorry, it's not a stork.
I should have known. We told you, listener, at the start of this podcast that, in fact, Nick pointed out that he put a shirt and tie on. I should have known that when he stood up that he's wearing shorts. Of course, Nick Heyward's wearing shorts.
Shorts, sandals, shirt, and a tie. Just style icon. My God.
Well, I worshipped the pelican right from the off. I love everything that the pelican represents.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, this is so random, and this has nothing to do with our podcast. But I remember watching Jurassic Park, and after the whole kind of the whole film had gone on, and the people had died. People had died on that park, and the film finished with the T-Rex and the flag, the banner, and then they get the helicopter out, and these pelicans fly across, and I thought, oh my! And at that point, I thought, what are these dinosaurs? And it just made me think, my God, they are related to birds.
Yeah.
Anyway, that is all. That's all I'm saying.
They are prehistoric, aren't they? When you see them, we see them around here all the time, and
yeah.
I get a thrill still by just looking at how prehistoric they are, how low flying.
They're like pterodactyls.
Yeah.
You're listening to the Gig Stories podcast.
Oh God, I'm loving this. Right, we need to we're gonna crack on with our last question actually, Mr. Nick Heyward.
Oh, this is sad.
So, we always ask our guests to recommend either a live track, a live album, or maybe just a live performance that we can look at on YouTube or that's on the internet somewhere. Have you got anything that you could recommend to us that we check out?
Well, it is funny because I haven't been able to look at my live performances because there's the Windsor Arts Centre might pop up. But there are some really good recordings. There was one of the Beardy Man Festival playing an extended favourite shirts. That was pretty good. But I still think the doing Caravan and Sounds from the Street. I think it was Caravan. Yeah, it was. That was probably around about 97, 98. But yeah, I do a jam cover of Sounds the Street, and it was on TV, In Bed with Medina. Remember that?
Yes, with Bob Mills.
Yeah. And the two performances there are still online. And I must say, I'm pretty impressed with them myself. It's like, wow. And, you know, there wasn't a full band at that time because I just come back from America touring. And so I was really kind of on it, you know. And when I did that TV, and it was that moment where you're just doing it really well. You've got a bit of confidence behind you and stuff. And they've, you know, looking back now, they're really good. They've got loads of energy in the performances. So those two, I'd say, they're really good.
Chris, I don't think I've ever asked you your favourite live album.
Oh my God.
Because in episode 1, Nick, I chose where Chris and I just introduced ourselves in the podcast. I chose a live album by Jeff Buckley, which was a compilation of live performances by Jeff Buckley. I just love hearing his voice and musicianship live. So what would yours be, Chris?
So thank you for giving me that time to think. In 1990 I went to the Glasgow Royal Concert Hall, and I've spoken about this on a couple of episodes before, but I went to see Dizzy Gillespie and the United Nations big band. Wow. And he was playing with just the most incredible Cuban musicians as well as American musicians. There was a saxophonist called James Moody who was playing with him, and a trumpeter called Arturo Sandoval who could hit these notes that would make dogs go what, and Flora Purim was singing, and there was just a ridiculous amount of amazing musicians.
Yeah.
And then the following week they recorded that concert at the festival hall in London, so it's kind of the gig that I saw at in Glasgow. So I think
got a copy of it, yeah?
Yeah. So I think it would probably be that one, I reckon.
I like it. It's back to you, Mr. Hayward.
I wasn't thinking.
You thought you'd got away with it, didn't you?
I suppose the one that really, really did that moment was seeing XTC. Yeah.
What's your favourite XTC track?
Radio's Emotion or Science Fiction. I never thought it was. Sorry, I was saying Radio's Emotion. I Can See the Ocean. For all those years, I never knew what that was until I was watching the Rock Goes to College gig. And that's when you can hear the intonation in the lyric. Because, with Andy Partridge and with the way John Leckie had mixed everything, it was, just Radio's Emotion, I Can See the Ocean. You never actually really knew what the lyrics were, and I never looked them up. So there it was, just going, I can see the ocean. I never knew that. What a brilliant line. What an absolutely brilliant line. Radio's Emotion, I Can See the Ocean. And I wouldn't have not seen... Yeah, so The Rock Goes to College, I think that's on YouTube.
Every episode has its own page on our website, so all the various things that we've talked about tonight, we're going to pop on your episode page, and so there'll be links to various bits and bobs. So we'll do a little playlist for you and all that kind of stuff. So listen, Nick Heyward, thank you very much for an amazing episode.
Thank you. Thank you.
This has been absolute joy and pleasure. I can't wait till we're right out of this lockdown and that you come back over to Britain, and Chris and I are going to be at the front of the Nick Heyward mosh pit.
Yeah, well, I'm going to hopefully make it a really nice mid-century modern mosh pit.
Forget that. We're going to find you one in Manchester. We're going to find you one in Manchester, and we're going to put on Nick Heyward in Manchester.
We'll get some cork flooring throughout.
Cork flooring?
Cork.
Talk. Ah, right.
Yeah, cork flooring.
Okay.
Easy. Family show.
What a way to end. Brilliant. Nick Heyward, thank you so much for joining us.
Dear.
And we definitely need to have you back on again. Thank you.
I'd love to.
Nick Heyward, everyone. What a gentleman. Oh.
Woo!
In fact, a gentleman.
Oh, totally. I mean, he just was so shy or embarrassed when trying to give him any kind of compliment, and just wanted to hug him. And the irony is that we were on that call for 2 hours, and it could easily have been 4 hours or 5. He just had so much to say in a lovely way, just so chatty, so fun. Oh, and let's just point out that horrific gig of his with the that was just full of Hindus and oh my God, I can't imagine what that must have been like.
One they thought they were booking the full band, and it was just Nick on his own.
It was Nick Heyward, like acoustic evening, and they think they're there for the whole band shebang. Poor man. Yeah. Oh, poor fella. What a nightmare.
Well,
what a nightmare.
What a lovely guest. So yeah. Hope you enjoyed.
He's someone that I would love to catch up with if he gets back over to the country soon for a live gig. That would be great to go and see him and have one of our little gig stories catch-ups, which could be little episodes. Hey,
go on.
We go with previous guests, have a little catch-up, and just have a little 10-minute episode, and so that we can just update the listener on what they're doing. And I think that'd be ace.
Like Grand Designs, like when they go back maybe a year later, say, "Oh, I like what you've done with that porch."
Oh, he's painted that porch, hasn't he?
Yeah,
I love it. Yeah, I like that idea.
Okay, cool.
So this past week, it'd be rude of us to not mention James Holt, whom we love dearly, fabulous singer-songwriter from Bolton, and writer of our wonderful theme tune, Gig Stories podcast. It is wicked. I absolutely love it. He's got new music out. He's got a new single, Make My Day. So put it in your ears, have a listen. And it is typically James Holt. I'm not sure anyone out there at the moment can write a song like he does. It's just so melodic and so sort of fragile, but really really happy at the same time. He's got a real knack, James. I love him. And if all you've heard of James Holt is our theme tune, well, go and check him out because you'll be surprised, and he's fabulous. We love him, don't we?
Check him out. Any other business? AOB, Alex Winters.
AOB, ladies, gentlemen, friends, countrymen, we are on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Gig Stories Pod, and you can email us as well at
info@gigstoriespodcast.com.
I'm going to be honest, I'd forgotten that email address in that moment.
Yeah, I had to reach for that.
That was a good reach, I'll be honest, because it sounds like it's been a while. Please get in touch with us. We love it when you interact with us and send us your guest suggestions and also your pictures of various things. Now, I do just have to address something in case some people say, whoa, what's happened here? I don't have much of an update for you with regards to my trip to Cardiff.
Oh.
Well, my update being, I don't have the scrapbook as yet.
Oh, there's a chink of light there, is there?
Maybe. Okay. I spent a lot of time going through boxes in the attic, and I think it's still too soon for me to rage at my father as he passed so recently, but he did have a penchant for throwing other people's stuff out, but hoarding all his own. And I know my mum doesn't listen to this podcast, but she'd literally be shouting amen and clapping and cheering because it used to wind her up. He'd just get rid of stuff without asking her, but never his own. So I'm a little worried, as is my mum, that he may have gotten rid of a few boxes of mine along with my brother. And dare I mention...
Sorry, he got rid of your brother?
Yeah, he's gone.
Wow.
Gadge is gone.
Well, Gadge, I mean, I suppose he was taking up quite a bit of space.
He is. He's a big man.
He's a big lad.
He is a big lad.
He's a big bugger for his mother.
The worst being a massive Scalextric set that apparently gave away.
Ooh.
So, yeah, so a bit of controversy, guys. So I'm not going to shed tears yet, but they are close at hand. Let me tell you,
in the post.
So I'm hoping when I get back down there soon, I'll have more time, and I don't know if there is a God, he will just deliver it to me on a lovely velvet pillow and go, here it is.
And if you don't find your tickets, then the next best thing, an Excel spreadsheet. Yay!
I have thought about what I would do, which is cry for days. But I think what I would try and do is track down people's pictures of the ticket stubs, but it's got to be the ones that I was at. Okay. Now that's big, and maybe this should be a documentary for the BBC.
Well, I was going to say you could probably get an Arts Council grant for that.
Satire, comedy.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Bit of politics.
I like it. So we'll see. Fingers crossed, guys. Anyway, we love you lots, and we've still got loads of guests lined up.
We've got some in the bank, haven't we?
Quite a few. Oh, yeah, we've got guests in the bank and some exciting ones coming up. We really appreciate you listening, and please spread the word, and please give us a lovely review on whatever app you're listening to, because it just helps us be put out there. It's not because we want you to love and adore us. It is a bit, but it just helps our placing and helps people find it. So please give us lovely reviews and tell all your family and friends and tell your nana to listen to us. Thank you. And please, and thank you.
Except not the Matt Fraser one. Your nana wouldn't like the Matt Fraser one.
Yeah. Do not let your nan listen to Matt Fraser's one. No. Start with Andy Day, then working to Dennis Lawson, and you'll be fine.
Andy Day's like the gateway drug into the podcast.
It's often been said that. So we shall see you very soon on the Gig Stories podcast. It's bye for me.
And it's bye from me. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.